Yeah.
Here we are. There's some cherry blossoms out in Union Square, but there are very few people.
Yeah, I hope that this is working right now. We had a little bit of we got out here early to be ready to record and everything, and then we had a little technical snafu that may have just sunk the whole production, so I have no way of really finding out if people can see us now or not. So Charles, let's imagine that we are functional. How are you?
I'm great, and I know the real reason that you took us here is you want to go get some food at Whole Foods.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's another Whole Foods there. Yeah. No, well, yeah, that's sort of what I was thinking about, is this idea of some of the things that are maybe, trying to look on the positive side of coronavirus, like you don't have to wait for elevators anymore.
That's true.
What else?
Well, but to give people a sense of who are not from New York, what this is normally like, on a Sunday at this time, typically this plaza is filled with a mixture of protesters and tourists. And honestly, it's kind of like Hyde Park Corner in London, where people gather on a Sunday and speak extemporaneously. You've got mixtures of lunatics and sensible people. And actually, in the old days, I used to come over here just to check out what was going on, because sometimes there are actual legitimate protests. I've been involved in some of them.
Huh.
In fact, with Pamela Geller, right over on the street corner there, we had a big protest once over against Qatar.
Oh yeah, Stop Qatar Now,
yeah.
Right?
And I don't know which way you want to go, Jason. This is Broadway ahead of us. We could go down 4th Avenue, or we could go down Broadway towards the church where I was married, Grace Church there.
Oh yeah, let's do that.
Okay. And we could show people my favorite bookstore.
Sure. Everything is so out of whack because of that last-minute tech problem. I hope people are getting the show right now.
Maybe somebody, I don't know if you can see comments, but maybe somebody can send a comment.
I'm trying to get the other phone on so that we can check. Now, so Charles, people are very concerned, obviously, about a lot of different things having to do with the coronavirus. I had a ton of stuff loaded onto the phone that we were going to check out and talk about, but now we've switched to another phone to do the show, and that's thrown us off a bit. We mostly want to talk about the World Health Organization and this fellow Tedros.
Sure. You want to do that first?
Sure. Yeah.
Maybe we have the light.
Yeah. Let's go.
We have the police protection light. Continue walking. So there's a whole theory that in times of crisis like now, that what you should do is, instead of relying upon a national authority, you should immediately drop everything and say, oh no, we need some international globalist thing, whether it's the UN or a branch of the UN or the World Health Organization. They're going to save us.
Sorry.
And so you'll notice that at the beginning of the crisis, a fellow, Dr. Tedros, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his various other names because I'm not very good at that, but he's been front and center on numerous broadcasts. Of course, he runs the World Health Organization. They have amazing financial resources and clout and connections around the world.
Right.
But he's been all over the media, spouting, frankly, horseshit. And the reason I can say that so definitively is that, like me, this guy is not a medical doctor.
Right.
But unlike me, he calls himself doctor, which I don't think is an appropriate.
Well, what is he a doctor of? Because we've seen a few people doing that.
Well, he has a PhD, which entitles him.
Sorry, hang on. Let me just see if we can check this here. Keep going.
I'll keep talking. We're actually steps away from my favorite bookstore, the Strand bookstore, which is probably closed as well. It's reassuring to see so much police, even though they're just traffic police.
Right.
Everywhere. There's 3 different ones there, just in one block. On our last weekly broadcast, I don't think we saw more than 1 real police officer.
Amazing. It's live. It's working.
All right, good. So back on Tedros, he, in quote, we've done a presentation about this a number back, where before coronavirus, where we explained that this distinguished oaf is somebody who's so dumb that he enlisted the aid of our magaziner and Bill Clinton And they together, as he was the incumbent health minister of Ethiopia, having no credentials as a medical doctor to take that post, he's the incumbent health minister. They put together a deal where the non-existent portion of the Clinton Foundation, let's say non-existent legally, Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS initiative.
There's the strand right there.
There's the strand. It looks quite closed.
Yeah. Well, at least we've got a police van here.
Yeah. Well, there's a police station right around the corner.
Right. So Tedros.
So that's actually closed, and it looks like the books are gone.
Whoa. So, I mean, are people preparing to guard their businesses against looting, you think? Because on the walk over here, we saw all the restaurants had their brown paper in front of the windows.
Yeah. Let me just finish the train of thought, if I may. So Tedros, in January of 2005, an agreement is trumpeted in press releases among this Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS initiative, which our research suggests never got tax exemption. Yale University, which should be a lot more careful about doing this kind of stuff, and the Ethiopian government. And they likely distributed, excuse me, adulterated HIV/AIDS medicine using this Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS initiative under the supervision of Tedros. So if he couldn't get that right, and he did this for quite a few years, and I promise you this is not coronavirus, it's just me being outside in the cold.
Yeah.
But maybe we could go.
Yeah. So he couldn't get that right. Why do we trust him on coronavirus?
But wait, it gets worse. If we go this way.
There's more.
And this is Broadway is generally packed.
On Sunday, yeah.
And that's the church where I was married, and where I was a choir boy, believe it or not.
Oh. We've looked at this on Google Earth before, so that's kind of cool that people get to see it. What's the name of this church again?
It's Grace Church.
Right.
And other than, that's the where the minister lives, and this is quite a famous. Why don't you get quite a famous church.
Cherry blossoms are out.
Yeah, and one of its claims to fame, other than I was married there, which I'm just joking, is guess who was married in Grace Church?
Princess Grace.
Tom Thumb.
Tom Thumb?
Yeah.
I don't know who that is.
The miniature guy.
Oh.
The circus performer.
I didn't realize, I don't think I know who he is. But anyway.
So on a Sunday, normally this area is just jam-packed.
Right.
And you look at the beautiful door.
That is beautiful.
Yeah. And this is when I was in school, I moved to this school in second grade. Mm-hmm. And for the whatever section of the school that comprised, we would have a Wednesday meeting in that chapel. Mm-hmm. And that's the famous chapel where these girls all asked you to raise money for UNICEF. Ah. And I took the box home to my parents and said, look, I want to raise money for UNICEF. My parents said, do you know what it is? And I said, no. And then I wasn't allowed to raise money for UNICEF. But that all started, so you could say the Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS initiative in Clinton Foundation expose has its roots there, where unfortunately there's a homeless person sleeping.
Oh, wow.
Now watch out for this guy here.
Yeah, so there's a lot of people kind of just roaming the streets.
Yeah. And what we're going to do now is this is the old school campus. We're actually now heading towards Epstein territory.
Oh, yes.
So so finishing the train then, Tedros goes from being just Minister of Health to being chairman of the Global Fund in 2009.
Right, the Global Fund.
Which is that housed within the World Health Organization.
Right.
That received all kinds of money from our government and other governments and channeled it to projects around the world for which there's never been an accounting in the tens and tens of billions of dollars. He did this in league in 2009 with Rajat Gupta, the disgraced felon who had been running McKinsey. And I'm only at 2009 here. So when we look at this guy, when somebody is prepared in a private conversation to say, you know, I'm actually a famous actor when they're not.
Right.
That's one thing. You're used to that in New York City.
Right.
Yeah, any stranger you meet's got some story about who they really are.
Right.
But to see somebody get up in front of the global press from the world headquarters of WHO and call himself a doctor, suggesting he is a medical doctor when
Right.
he is not. You know, right there I say, now wait a minute. A table or chain is as strong as its weakest link.
Yep.
So in the global health interconnected world, we have a system where the United States has got, you know, expensive but pretty good health infrastructure around this country. Ethiopia, the country where this Nimrod is from, you know, after all these years and billions of dollars, still has very few doctors, very few nurses.
Billions of dollars to the WHO, you mean?
No, to Ethiopia,
Oh.
from the Global Fund and from other places. With all of that, under the direction and in the history of Tedros, we are left behind with a system in Ethiopia that is not equipped to cope with this pandemic. I mean, you talk about the problems we have in England with 70 million people or 65 million people. Ethiopia has close to 110 million people.
Wow.
And here, this idiot, you know, who did a poor job as health minister in Ethiopia, gets promoted upwards. Now he's the head of and we're listening to him.
Well, what is he a doctor of?
He's a PhD and I don't know what.
So, I mean, that's kind of weird that you'd make the head of the World Health Organization a doctor in something other than medicine. I would even go as far as saying, look, we know Dr. Corsi is a PhD in political science, and, you know, he sometimes comments on, obviously, coronavirus is national news, so he's commenting on it, but I don't think he ever makes any kind of effort to imply that he's anything other than a doctor of political science.
Right.
And when we have somebody who's the head of the World Health Organization, I think people would assume he's a medical doctor.
Right,
There's
exactly.
another person who's doing that right now, Charles. There's a guy named Dr. Paul Cottrell, who, let's let this bus pass.
Sure. This too shall pass. We're here in Astor Place, for people who don't know New York. When I was writing for the...
Look at that black cube, Charles.
Yes. It turns. You can turn
I
it.
know, but it's like an evil thing. The black cube has symbolism of something.
So
Saturn.
I used to write, when I'd write my column for the the Washington Times, I used to write it in there.
Starbucks?
Yeah, and you'd see a lot of very famous people in that particular Starbucks.
Well, there's a hip neighborhood. Don Imus used to live in that building.
Which one?
The one Astor Place, right on the corner over there. And this is like NYU territory. 721 Broadway is right over there. So this was kind of like my
Your hangout.
stomping ground in college. Yeah.
Are you sure your hangout wasn't over there?
Well, it was. Yeah.
So wait, we just stop for a second. There's Cooper Union. So we finished on Tedros. We haven't even, we'll stop the story on Tedros in 2009 and say that there's a lot more coming on Tedros and how he got to be head of the WHO, whether the WHO indeed manages any money properly. The donors to the WHO beyond individual nations include the Gates Foundation, Bloomberg Philanthropies, Rockefeller Foundation. It has way too much money. If you punch into Google WHO fraud and corruption, you will get Ortell's first law. I mean, you'll find all sorts of stuff in there. So more on that in another broadcast.
But just quickly on this guy, Dr. Paul Cottrell.
Sorry.
You know, he presents himself as a Harvard doctor. He's talking about medical subjects. He's come on the social media scene during this coronavirus outbreak, and I think a lot of people automatically, myself included, presumed he was a medical doctor. And I had reached out to him for several weeks to try to get him on the show.
Careful.
To try to talk to the guy.
Let's just focus on.
Sure. And he's been avoiding me, he's been appearing on other shows, and I've heard him mispronounce medical terms, and he's driving panic. So if Dr. Paul Cottrell sees this, it's no longer an invitation to appear on the show, it's a challenge to appear on the show and answer questions as to why a non-MD is putting forward this inflammatory information, because there's been a lot of people inflaming And doctors are guilty too.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So Cooper Union used to be, it was Peter Cooper who endowed this place along, in the 1600s. And it used to be a deal that you competed to get in, and when you got in, your tuition was free.
Yeah, but that's been recently eliminated.
Well, and the reason is because Jeffrey Epstein's brother was chairman of the board of Cooper Union and screwed the whole place up. And so when I hear on the one hand, it's like, well, who's that character, the annoying character in Beverly Hills Cop 2 or whatever, the accountant? Let's say on one hand, I have
it's Gilbert Gottfried.
Gilbert Gottfried. On the one hand, I've got an investment fund over here that's producing these returns that can't be explained. On the other hand, over here, I've got an endowment that Peter Cooper gave, hundreds of years ago that goes up in smoke.
Well, what they
Nobody
do with
connects
that,
the dots.
What they do with that endowment is there's a huge building over here that has something to do with Cooper Union. Is that
Well,
maybe?
they speculate. I think they, Mark Epstein, I mean, the ties between and among the Epstein brothers and various and sundry people have not been teased out in much the same way as coronavirus arrived to take the discussion of what was going on in the Durham Barr investigations of the Clinton Foundation and the campaign against unregulated globalism. When Epstein, quote, killed himself,
Yes.
suddenly there was no interest anymore in looking into those issues. Now, down here, I don't particularly like this type of architecture. It's like what they did is they said, we've got some stumblebum with a lot of money who doesn't give a shit about his money or her money, and we'll find some crazed architect who likes LSD and let them build things.
But that's the building I was thinking about. This is the new Cooper Union building. So what's the story with this?
Well, I think what happened was that in addition to spending excessive amounts of money on that, and this shows Peter Cooper was born
February
that can't be right.
12th.
MD 1500 1790? He died that late? I thought he was, anyway, I thought must have been a later person than I thought. But I believe what happened, Jason, is a combination of spending too much on construction while also poor investments in the endowment.
But didn't you tell us that construction is the number one way to kind of like steal and launder money?
Absolutely.
I say number two, Hollywood motion picture being number one.
Now, so if we continue in this direction, we have options. We can go to Washington Square Park and jink into Chinatown, or we can go.
I think people will want to see Chinatown. There's been a lot of China messaging. In the video I did the other day about Dr. Colleen Smith in the article in the New York Times, I pointed out to people that in the background of her selfie was a restaurant called New Taste of China. And it could just be a coincidence or a mistake, but certainly NYU Cinema Studies people would tell you that that's subtext, and that's something trying to send you a message. And I don't know, she could have taken that selfie in front of some ambulances and stuff. I had a whole bunch of material I was going to share with everybody about tweets that Dr. Colleen Smith has put out in response to my questions about Governor Cuomo directly contradicting her statement that there were not enough ventilators. The hospital and Governor Cuomo now say that there are plenty of ventilators. So I was trying to get to the bottom of that. The doctor had said she wanted to speak to the press, but she did respond via direct message this morning, declining the invitation for an interview. So she doesn't want to answer for the obvious contradiction.
Of course not. I mean, I think, when we think about a nation of 330 million people, and let's say we think about the bottom 20%, that's 66 million people.
Yep.
And those 66 million people in the main may not even have bank accounts, let alone savings.
Right.
And so what we're doing, and they eat, drink, and sleep and worry just like everybody else, if not more than everybody else. So the way in which this has been whipped into another media frenzy, much like the Russia
So wait a
hoax.
minute, now there's two guys there. I'm going to keep my eye on them.
All right, well, let's make a hard right suddenly here. Or
People
unless
who
you
saw last week's show will remember the drama of an attack in Penn Station. We're trying to avoid that. We've taken some precautions.
All right. Yeah. So where were we? Yeah. So
No savings.
So the degree to which we've got, I mean, we had Fauci on either this morning or last night. Hard right or no?
Sure.
Yeah. And speed it up. Saying that he thought there would definitely be 100 to 200,000 cases, and then he kept talking, and then without even like missing a beat, he said, "Oh, I mean deaths, not cases." I mean, that's awfully cavalier.
Well, it's also not too precise.
Right, and the thing of it is that the right way to look at this, in my view, is how many people were exposed and got the actual virus. Of those, how many people then suffered some sort of infection or disease? And of those, how many, first of all, how many have emerged from it unscathed, which is over 50% so far.
I thought they were saying like 85%.
50 to 85%. I'm just being conservative. 50 to 85%. And we don't really know how many people actually had this to begin with. So all we're pinpointing now are the number of cases. We don't know when this actually bit in this country. I know that when I got back from Norway, I had symptoms of a flu. Remember, we canceled a show on Wednesday. I was coughing.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to, so we took a week interval.
Yep.
And I believe I'm fine. I mean, it's not great to be out here in this weather in the mist.
Yeah.
And of course, you're going to get the sniffles from that.
There's no gorillas in this mist, Charles.
Although,
I don't know.
I wouldn't be so sure.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be so sure of that. But this area, we stopped right here in the middle of the street.
I mean, it's amazing.
This is, this was basically undeveloped in the 60s. It was either businesses or derelict going down that way. And now it's top of the line, really expensive apartments.
But there's nobody here.
Yeah. And this is a Sunday when it's typically pretty crowded.
Unbelievable. Standing in the middle of Broadway against the
Not
light.
Broadway, Lafayette.
Oh, sorry, Lafayette. Right.
I'm your tour guide.
Well, Broadway's right. I've lost.
How much power do you have?
No, the power is good on this one, but this phone is the one that's losing power is screwed up, so I can't see comments, unfortunately. I was looking forward to some interaction with the viewers, but Charles, to what extent, I don't mean to go in reverse, but this guy Tedros, he's with the World Health Organization. Everybody says the World Health Organization is great. The second you question them, you're a conspiracy theorist, you're a Trump supporter, you're a maniac, unless you're in your house being afraid of coronavirus and hating Donald Trump.
Well, actually, so the World Health Organization is a resource, but let's give a specific case in point, all right?
Yeah.
In this excellent book, Bottle of Lies by Catherine Eban, she talks about the process by which Ranbaxy, a diabolical Indian generic drug manufacturer, introduced adulterated HIV/AIDS drugs around the world, likely in league with the Clinton Foundation. And the process began right after January. Yeah, amazing. This is Broadway here. There's the church.
But also there's something going on with police activity down there, it seems.
Yeah, which is at least where the police people.
Cab.
Let's not take a picture of the guy who's yelling. But
yeah, I mean, as we've been saying, I don't know how this homeless issue is being dealt with, but sorry, so Ranbaxy.
So Ranbaxy, the Global Fund, created January 22nd, 2002. They had a budget, but they didn't have any projects. And if they had to pay for FDA-approved HIV/AIDS medicines, those are a lot more expensive than generics. Right. So the fantastic World Health Organization tests generics and approves 3 Ranbaxy drugs in March of 2002, having trained the best resources of the World Health Organization.
Dojo Restaurant out of business. That's been there forever. Sorry.
It's okay. So they approved these 3 Ranbaxy drugs. Scroll forward to August of 2004. By August of 2004, the government of South Africa is like, something ain't right here. And the World Health Organization is brought into it, And Ranbaxy goes through a process where early in 2005, precisely when this idiot, Tedros, is working with the Clinton Foundation and Yale, and frankly the idiots are at Yale as well.
Present company excluded.
Or maybe included. But they ramp up this project, and it turns out that all of the pills that have been supplied to determine whether this stuff was real or not, all of the test results, everything had been invented. So they fooled, in quotes, fooled the World Health Organization. And the way they do that is they inject crooks into the bureaucracy at the UN, at the World Health, at all these different places.
Right.
Indeed, I believe there are crooks in a lot of the national health departments around the world, including our own.
CDC, NIH, all of them.
I mean, the CDC, as an example, go into the Clinton Foundation donor list. The CDC has been a donor to the Clinton Foundation in the millions.
That's amazing to me. Doesn't the CDC need all the money they have to prevent diseases and control them?
No.
Why are they giving it to the Clintons?
It's absurd. And it's, you get this, on the one hand, we who pay taxes are expected, there's no debate. You can't say to them, well, I've had a rough year and I need to say, you pay the tax when it's due. Right? On the other hand, it goes into these first in a city pool or state pool or federal pool, and then from there, the geniuses in our federal government say, oh, well, why don't we give money to the World Health Organization? It's a cesspool.
Should we go to the park?
Sure. This is Washington Square Park, a place that I started playing in quite a few years ago and ceased playing in a long time ago. Yeah. But it really is quite, it's, do you know the origins of Washington Square Park?
I'm not sure.
This used to be where they hung people.
Oh.
Way back when.
That's nice.
Yeah. So it's got great karma.
Well, when was that going?
Before the 1776.
It's quite windy.
Yeah. We can go down that way.
Well, I guess people want to see the park, so.
All right.
So I guess this guy Tedros, Charles, weren't there certain specific things that he's done, like with the children in Ethiopia, where there's like...
So the second piece of it is, if you look him up in various places, it says that he's the leader of a political party, that in Ethiopia, while also being chairman of the World Health Organization, and that party is a Marxist-Leninist party that bemoaned the breakup of the Soviet Union, is hardly the kind of party that we would support, that most Americans would support, except for those who teach at the Ivy League universities, and the Clintons maybe, and the Obamas. But you just look at this person, and on the list of priorities in 2020 for scarce American tax dollars and borrowing capacity, giving money to Dr. Tedros has got to be, as Gordon Chang said, the only person worse than Dr. Tedros to give money to solve this problem would be the leader of China.
Wow. Well, see, it's interesting that he's involved in this Marxist-Leninist thing, because I've been saying that what we're seeing is a neo-Marxist, sort of jihadi, anarchist destruction of the United States, and people think I'm being ridiculous. This Dr. Colleen Smith, she went to the University of Chicago, and one of the questions I wanted to ask her was, did she study under or interact at all with Bill Ayers?
You want to go down that way, or?
Sure.
I mean,
let's show people the park here for a moment.
This is the arch, the famous arch.
De Triomphe. No, that's in France.
It's still in France.
But this is modeled after that, isn't it?
I think so. And in the old days, you can't see it now, but when I was a little kid, what would happen is the buses, the Fifth Avenue was both directions. It would come downtown, it would go through the arch, around this, and back out, and yet we would still play.
Wow.
And my mother was constantly saying, watch out for the buses! Like, I got it, Mom.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
so traffic went through here.
Well, you're talking in the
way back in the
1959.
So the buses were still operated by dinosaurs.
They were, exactly.
From Barney Rubble's bare feet.
I met Barney Rubble.
Barney Rubble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's going to be in the Biden cabinet.
So how come none of this stuff is known about this guy, Tedros? Everybody thinks the World Health Organization, they say there's going to be, aren't they the ones supplying the information about who has coronavirus where? That heat map?
Yeah. So we're going to go around and back?
Sure.
Yeah. So basically, the World Health Organization sits in Switzerland. It sits above any kind of oversight by design. Within this massive complex of buildings is lodged Unitate, is lodged Global Fund, and
all
many.
The crooks.
Right. Well, they're all these gigantic piles of money go to Switzerland, and in theory, these gigantic piles of money go back out to the really poor countries. If we have a weak link, and we want to try to solve this problem, you would go to the poorest countries in the world first, and make sure that they actually had hospitals and roads and water and nurses. And you would encourage these, these scruffies and idealists who want to go and tear down the capitalist system. You'd say, all right, here's the good news. The good news is, as Biden would say, here's the deal. You're going to be a doctor. The bad news is you're going to spend 20 years of your life in Ethiopia, and in exchange for that, you pay off your notional loan. But you really want to do some good? Go into the rural areas in Ethiopia and help run a hospital. Help run, work with nurses to solve some of these problems. Work on cures.
Yeah.
Don't go and say that we have to, as AOC wants to do, take our hard-earned money and give that to people who went into this country illegally.
Right.
I mean,
what was it you were telling me about her meltdown on the House floor?
Yeah, well, how those, now we're walking by the NYU Law School.
Well, right. We're right down by where I was trying to have a conversation with Andrew McCabe just a few weeks ago. It seems like a totally different world now, Charles.
It is.
It is.
We're just above Little Italy.
Yep.
We're just going down now, and this is it may not look to people who are outside New York like anything, but it's become a hot area with lots of, the buildings we see before us are not the fancy ones, but lots of very expensive co-ops and townhouses and places mixed in with old rental stock.
Right. We're on Thompson and West 3rd right now. There's a lot of restaurants and bars down here, and of course they're all closed. This is a neighborhood that's going to be really, I think, impacted. Ooh, we're getting some radio interference right here. Let's see if it's across the street.
That's Anderson Cooper's place, I think.
What's that?
The fire patrol building, that's his house.
Really?
Yeah.
So is he broadcasting some sinister radio signals to try to stop us? He's doing his CNN broadcasts from inside there. This is Anderson Cooper's house, huh?
That's what I'm told. I don't know, it could be wrong.
Who's the face on the...
It was a firehouse.
But that face...
I have no idea. But I want to show you here. This is, I think, Sullivan Street. Yeah. I want to show...
That's NYU Law School right there.
Yeah, and that building right there, indeed, right there is where, when my parents moved us into the village, of all things, they decided to buy a pipe organ, and they kept it in the NYU Law School auditorium. But this is, I think, is this still in business? Cafe Reggio?
Oh no, that's on
Next one?
Bleecker. Yeah.
All right. So Cafe Reggio, I'll show you that. In the old days, when
I love that place.
yeah, well, when women went into childbirth, they would, when they went into labor, the husbands weren't allowed in the room.
Oh right.
And so when my next brother down went into the ejection seat, actually right across the street is where it's now offices, but that used to be an auditorium. That's where the organ was. But when he went into the ejection seat, my father was pitched out of the hospital, and so he met his friend from Spokane who worked at Dillon Reed, actually, and they had dinner at Cafe Reggio, waiting for Eric to come.
Wow.
The Cafe Reggio is to show people much.
Yeah. So there's a lot of people on bikes down here. I mean, this is the street I was thinking about. Monty's is down this street.
It's your favorite place, right?
It is my favorite Italian restaurant for sure.
So this is
But all these places are closed, Charles. Cafe Reggio is a great place. They do light food. I don't know that they do dinner anymore, but it's coffee and tea and cakes and maybe sandwiches and stuff. But, you know, all of these places on this street are restaurants. This Comedy Cellar, if people have seen that Louis C.K. show, that's a famous comedy club.
Cafe Wa.
Cafe Wa was where Jimi Hendrix was first discovered or, you know, made famous. Minetta Tavern, all these places are closed.
Minetta Tavern, in the old days of Minetta Tavern, was really nice. Then they tarted it up, yuppified it.
I haven't been in there in a long time, but like pizza places, I mean, ordinarily there would be people in these bars watching sports games, busting out into the street, literally. You cannot walk down this street without tons of people, you know.
And when we talk about the balance, take the WHO, you know, you have, on the one hand, you definitely have a medical set of issues, but on the other hand, you have a global economy that is now shut.
Yeah.
And these shops are now shut.
As is Monty's.
And many of these shops depended upon NYU, both the students and the professors.
Dear NYC patrons, March 16th, closing temporarily. So I think they'll be back, but I don't know if too many restaurants can survive this.
Right, and so the strain caused, I mean, the economy, Trump is absolutely right, the economy was humming, our economy, and now it's shut.
Yeah.
And so people who employ other people and have a certain amount of equity capital in total and a certain amount in their businesses are suffering amazing losses that are not, should not be thought of in terms of GDP. They should be thought of in terms of the stock of wealth in this country, which is many times GDP. It's $100 trillion.
You mean the wealth of the individual people?
Everybody, corporations, everything. The total wealth pile.
It's getting drained by the day right now, isn't it?
Well, it's getting destroyed. It's down 20% in the stock market, 30%. So that's a loss on paper, if you don't have to sell, of $30 trillion, call it.
Wow.
How are we going to make the wealth back? Right? How are we going to do that? And we've already now just blown another $2 trillion. And literally at this time of day, I've walked here many times on a Sunday. You can't get through the street easily.
No, I know. And
this
you know
place
what?
Is open.
I believe this thing right here is 77.
Yeah.
This is like the gun club or something?
Yeah, but it has a name on it.
Or perhaps it's if you're not in the club, you go in there and that's where the guns come out. But there's something going on here.
It says members only. Yeah,
right,
the Rifle
we're
Club.
Not invited to.
New York Rifle Club. And I think we'll safely assume that we're not invited.
No. So now, Charles, wasn't one of the goals of the Weather Underground to destroy the United States and replace it with a Democratic Socialist government? So wasn't Bernardine Dohrn and Bill Ayers the two principals in the Weather Underground, and weren't they also mentors to Barack and Michelle Obama? And didn't they have an article in the New York Times on September 11th, 2001, before 8 a.m. in the morning when the planes hit the building, and Bill Ayers was saying that he didn't regret setting off bombs in the 60s and he felt they should have done more?
Are you leading the witness, Perry Mason?
Well, I'm saying I firmly believe, I didn't know anything about the Weather Underground until David Hawkins told me about it.
Yeah.
And Dr. Corsi knows a lot about it, you know a lot about it. But it seems to me that when they failed to incarcerate Bernardine Dohrn and Bill Ayers because the FBI mishandled evidence, and despite the fact that they were guilty, and Bill Ayers even admitted that he was guilty as hell but free as a bird, I believe they've infiltrated the U.S. government. I believe Barack Obama was a subversive weatherman. You know, when he said he was a community organizer, he was talking about Saul Alinsky.
Right, well, as is Hillary.
Yes, they're not talking about basketball games and church picnics. They're community organizers. That's a socialist activity. And I believe that their plan was for Hillary to become president, and introduce socialism, and when that didn't work, this is their sort of like emergency, pull the hatch plan to just destroy everything.
Yeah, it's certainly, I mean, the full economic effects they are not remotely felt yet. I mean, we're going to see, I think, on Monday, unfortunately, the Federal Reserve Bank in the U.S. and central banks have been intervening already in markets. It's not like they have unlimited firepower.
And they haven't been effective, have they?
Well, markets are still down a lot. And we'll start to see, I think, in coming, maybe on Monday or maybe tonight, we're going to start to see unwinding of leveraged positions held by investment firms, banks, individuals. And you could see, even though the prices are way down already, you could see a further drop in these prices that might go on the Dow well below 18,000, which was close to the low in the recent fall off.
Wow.
So that's something that you could say, well, that doesn't matter, those are just rich people. No, anybody who has a pension has assets that are invested in the stock
401k.
market. Well, if you're a public school teacher,
right,
you've got a lot of money invested in the market. You just don't know it.
Right, the pension, the TIAA.
CREF.
Right.
And same with if you're a retired government official. If you're a union worker, chances are you have a lot of money at risk in the stock market and the debt markets and private equity and venture capital and all the things that Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders and other economically illiterate socialists are trying to destroy.
Right.
So we're actually, I think Little Italy's another block in, if you want.
But I mean,
Let's just say lunatic yelling there.
Yeah, across the street.
We go down one more.
Yeah.
He's in the middle of the street yelling.
Although that's not entirely unusual.
Yeah.
There's usually a buffer of other people around.
No, that guy's he's a, what do you call him? A
Crazy
stand-in?
person?
No, he's a stand-in for Joe Biden.
Yeah, so Joe Biden now is concerned about the Wuhan virus. Did you hear about that?
Did he really say that?
Yes.
He
the
didn't
Wuhan
say that.
virus. He
Wuhan?
did. I saw it on Twitter this morning.
Oh my God.
Wuhan virus.
Oh my God. I mean, there's another non-doctor, Jill Biden. I actually thought she was a medical doctor.
What is
She's
she
a
a
doctor of
doctor?
education.
Oh.
The two of them need to go, meet at the local RV store, buy a nice RV, and drive off into the distance. And I mean, like the far distance.
Well, Giuliani has been kind of hammering the topic that Joe Biden is just simply not physically, mentally, qualified to run for president.
Well, which is really stunning when you think of a guy who spent his whole life. That's a line, I think, to get into one of those stores. Probably a Whole Foods.
Is it Whole Foods, or I think there might be a Trader Joe's over there.
Could be a Trader Joe's. Yeah.
But this is the new thing, the line. Yesterday, the line at the Whole Foods near my apartment was around, all the way down 24th Street.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine who lives on the east side was telling me he waited over 40 minutes in line to get into the supermarket.
Well, you can go to the grocery store and then you can pick up a Ducati motorcycle.
Yeah, I don't imagine the Ducati place is doing a lot of business right
It's
now.
not
But
Ducatiing much.
Charles, for people who live alone in New York City, the economics of grocery shopping are kind of interesting because, normally if you buy like a package of chicken or something like that, it's too much for one person to eat in one day. So,
That's a long line.
It's a long line. You cook it and, it's an issue of, first of all, the time that it takes to cook.
Right.
And if you've got a busy job, taking time out of your day to cook stuff, plus you're buying for one, so there's leftovers, you gotta cook it again the next day or the day after that, or it starts becoming, is it gonna go bad? I do a lot of my shopping
Where?
At Whole Foods, but the prepared food area where
Yeah.
I'm just grabbing something and eating it. And frankly, to fit all the stuff into a day that I do, I sort of rely on that. And now that I've been cooking lunch and cooking dinner, it's a lot more time out of your day. The productivity from other things slows down, and
That's it. That you go on my plant, the 2-meal plant.
but
Breakfast and dinner.
I was cooking breakfast also.
Yeah.
The point is, there's a lot of conveniences. I mean, look, obviously, people dying of coronavirus is way more important than me being able to buy something from a hot food bar. That's a really cute dog. But I mean, these are all little things that are going to start adding up. I've been talking to people about this problem with my tooth. No dentists around. This is what I wanted to say. So I got distracted in the beginning because of all those tech problems with the phone dying, but we made today's episode called No Escape from New York because last night, when there was this debate as to whether or not there would be a citywide lockdown, I became pretty concerned. I was talking to somebody who suggested that I might be able to go see a friend of theirs who is a dentist in Connecticut. And the thing is, I wouldn't do that because...
You can't come back.
Right, from hour to hour, we don't know what's going to happen. So even without the official announcement of a lockdown, the city is effectively locked down. We've heard from people that New Hampshire, Mike Moore was telling me that New Hampshire is stopping cars.
And Rhode Island.
Rhode Island, sorry. Stopping cars with New York plates. And that's against the Constitution. Yeah, this guy's a problem. He's going to have to see the carabiner.
But there's ahead of us is the Holland Tunnel entrance.
Yep.
And generally...
it's totally empty.
Yeah, I mean, generally in this time on a Sunday, this would be jammed with cars and buses and...
Traffic problem, always.
We're going down to Chinatown, or we're giving up?
No, definitely. I just wanted to show people buses only. There's nothing going on here, Charles. I mean, this is amazing.
There you've got souk and sandwich.
Here, there's the cops.
Good.
What is souk?
Right there. Souk is a marketplace.
Oh, I thought they misspelled soup.
No, souk. It's a Lebanese place. So this might not be all that interesting, but if we go in a couple of blocks, then you're in Little Italy, and then it takes you right into Chinatown.
What are these sculptures on the side of the building?
No clue.
Let's see if people can see those. Zoom in a bit. I find that stuff pretty interesting.
Yeah. Well, of course, this was big business center in the 1800s, 1900s, early 1900s.
Right.
This was the heart of the city, and then it migrated uptown. Yeah. So you have a lot of old buildings here that are now chiefly being repurposed, and some of them are really quite beautiful. Now, Jason, one of the reasons I didn't want to actually scare myself too much, so I didn't tell you the story until now.
Okay.
Because it might have changed your interest in going to Chinatown and down here. Well, I read a story that in San Francisco, they have this problem now that, among other many problems, but because their restaurants are not throwing out food, the rats are now, coming onto the sidewalks looking for food.
Yeah.
And so I have a funny feeling that's why I have this.
Well, that's not anything different, really. But you know what? I saw that too, and I also saw last week the New York Post planting a story about a rat virus.
Yep.
So, I mean, again, I think these newspapers are, in many ways, people say to me, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. You think all these newspapers and everybody's involved? And, I mean, the answer is no. I think there's a
80% off
the entire store.
I mean, it's tough to make money if you've got taken 80% off.
Maybe they're going out of business. It's a clearance. But, I mean, you think about who owns the New York Post. It's the Murdochs, right? And they were down with the Maxwells. Robert Maxwell and Rupert Murdoch were good friends.
Yeah, and investors and deals together.
Right. And we've got Jeff Bezos running the Washington Post. We've got, I don't know, it used to be Carlos Slim had a major investment in the New York Times, and certainly it would seem that Dean Baquet, the editor of the New York Times, doesn't care if they put conflicting information in there. To me, Charles, if I'm putting together a story and someone says there are not enough respirators, and then the hospital says there are enough respirators, and the governor says there are enough respirators, I would run it down and find out what the truth is before I created a story about it and put it in the New York Times and sent it all around the world, frightening people.
Well, that would be if you work for the National Enquirer that has higher standards than the New York Times.
Yeah.
I mean, the New York Times is just an embarrassment.
But it remains...
This one or next one down?
Whichever you want.
Yeah.
It remains the paper of record, basically, for the world, because that story went out in the New York Times. It got picked up in the Daily Mail. I saw it on CNBC, MSNBC. They were interviewing the journalist who wrote it. I mean, they're not asking him any questions about what about this conflict? What about the fact if that hospital's so full? I mean, that thing is not remote out there in Queens. There are other hospitals around. Why don't they have a plan to move patients out and alleviate the overload there?
It's silly. And for the very people who, before this happened, if you were to sit down and say, all right, who are the most efficient and professional managers? We give a list.
Yeah. Was Andrew Cuomo on?
Andrew Cuomo is not on the list. I mean, he doesn't make it through the blind auditions, let alone to be, American Idol.
Right.
So, and de Blasio, is lucky he's not booted out of this country.
Right.
So to say, well, in this crisis, which, this, in a normal spring day, this would be brimming with people where we are. Right. This is a ghost town.
This is fashion down here.
This is prime Soho, right?
Yep.
Now, I think, isn't it like one more in or two more in then down?
Sure.
I just don't know this area maybe as well.
I don't know it that well either. I usually just sort of walk straight down and,
I think it's a bit
right here.
Yeah. But normally, this would be filled with tourists. Shops would be open.
Yeah.
People would be, it's a Sunday, people would be having a good time. They'd be just finishing brunch or whatever.
Yeah.
And you can't get this revenue back.
Correct.
And you can't change the facts here. The politicians would like to, of course, and the Chinese would like to. But Dr. Fauci is saying that this virus may well return in the next flu season, which could be as soon as September and October.
I don't think I trust anything that guy says.
Right, but my instincts are that he's right on this one. And if anything, as you make your own calculations, you're going to say, I'm 7 years old, I've been in the restaurant business a long time.
Right, you're not going to reopen after this.
Right, you're going to say, I've had my run.
Right.
And you're going to move to wherever you want to move. You'll go back to Portugal or Italy, or maybe not Italy, but...
Well, what about, Charles, how people now have been so traumatized by something like this? We're hearing that they're going to start taking your temperature before you get into a restaurant or get onto a train. Like, one of the reasons I kind of use Amtrak when I go to Washington, D.C. or Virginia or certain places like that. It's just easier than the plane. Now that you've got TSA kind of, you got to get you got to get basically, body cavity search before you can get on the plane and whatever. They're saying that they're going to be doing stuff like that, like searching people.
This is amazing.
Yeah,
The old cobblestone streets, whatever they're called.
Empty.
Nobody.
It's crazy.
This is one of the prime streets in Soho, right? Grand Street?
Absolutely.
Grand and Mercer.
And everything is empty. How long will this happen? And when, as far as meeting people and going to parties or, people who are single, this is a really lonely time because you're not able to interact with friends, you're not able to get yourself involved in dating or whatever. People with families at least are spending the time together, but when you live alone, it's a real solitary time.
Yeah, and I saw it would have been in the slides that we've been doing slides, but I saw some real articles supposedly about a new batch or line of antimicrobial sex robots is flying off the shelves.
Oh my God. Well, that's what I mean. They've turned everybody into germaphobes where, look, a healthy amount of that is okay. I have often noted that no matter how fancy the restaurant I go to, when I'm in the men's room, I notice men go to the bathroom and just leave without washing their hands, which is not something that I would recommend.
This is odd over there?
Yeah, cross. But I mean, now everybody is like, afraid to stand near anyone, giving you dirty looks if you don't have a medical mask on everywhere you go.
I think now we're getting closer to
I'm not familiar with this place.
Which mall? Or Naked and Famous Denim?
Famous. Yeah. See, now what is going on with the paper bags? I guess because they think people will break in and loot.
I guess.
Huh. Wow.
But it won't be long before that is actually a person pretending to be a bunch of bags. And I think now we're getting closer to Little Italy.
Yeah.
You can see, those illuminated, Ferra, or whatever it says, Ferrara or something. That's the Little Italy.
Ferrara's Bakery.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Little Italy is, all restaurants. I wonder how much, it's going to be like a tsunami went through here.
Because the tsunami did go through. And I would caution people, I think on the health stuff, if we to comfort yourselves, go look at historical flu statistics, cases, infections, resulting in hospitalizations, and deaths. And, every year, in this country, it's a large number of people get the flu, and sadly, I've seen various statistics. I saw one in the last 24 hours that 68,000 people died of the flu.
Yep.
In the most recent, so you can't focus just on the number of cases and just on the number of deaths in isolation, especially remembering that most of the known deaths so far, an overwhelming percentage, occurred because people had acute medical problems.
Comorbidity.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't tell you about that.
Right.
Because that would help people form a
rational.
Rational and well-formed opinion about it. They just want people to have irrational fear and stay in their house. It almost seems like they don't want anybody out looking around at what's really going on, asking questions in the way that I've been. They don't want that.
Right. Yeah. So now this is the heart. There's Chinatown beginning and Little Italy over there. We'll go in a little bit more.
Sure.
We're just on the outskirts. I always forget that it's further east than I thought.
Yeah. What is this?
That's the police building, I think.
Oh.
It's now a co-op, a condo or something.
Open door
Senior Center, that portion of it. But I think that used to be, police department. Careful, Jason.
Ooh.
You guys have to be everywhere.
Yeah, I know. It says nobody, Charles. This is really outrageous.
Yeah. We go into Wu Lim Back Rub. They're $16, man.
Hey.
15 over here.
It's just shopping around for the cheapest coronavirus you can get.
That's right. The coronavirus special.
Yeah. I mean, this is really...
Oh yeah, Mulberry Street. That's what we want to walk down.
Yeah.
The Rio Grande Spa.
Oh, look at that. This is the place I saw online. Firearms and police equipment. So, I mean...
Since 1911.
I'm pretty sure you got to be a cop to go in here.
Well, you got to be a miracle worker to get in there now.
This is the only gun store in New York City, I'm pretty sure.
Is that right? Really?
I'm pretty sure. And I think you got to be a cop to go in. So that's cool that we got to see that. There's the Beretta Gallery up on like 60-something, but...
I think there are several hunting rifle places like Purdy's. And,
really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Shotguns and stuff. So this is Mulberry Street, the main artery for old style Italian restaurants. And as you go downtown, you get into Chinese restaurants.
Yep.
We don't have the light.
Nope.
So we could go down Mulberry Street, or
Sure.
we could keep going, whatever you want.
This is pretty funny. This guy standing behind us has his coronavirus mask off so he can smoke.
Yeah, that's good.
That's
Good plan.
recommended by the Surgeon General.
It's recommended by WHO.
Cigarette smoke kills the cronies.
So you see, did you give that view already?
Yeah. I mean, it's astounding.
These are Mulberry Street has still today has a lot of very good Italian restaurants, but none of them are open.
Right. It's a real dreary day, Charles.
And then we keep going this way. Now, you would think that Margarita NYC would come up with, Mama Leone or somebody says we're the #1 pizza place, not TripAdvisor.
Well, I guess tourists. There's a lot of tourists come down here.
This is a good place for Aura.
Yeah.
If you like sweets.
Cannolis, yeah, and wedding cakes.
Let's be careful.
Currently closed.
Is this guy wearing a MAGA hat?
So, Charles, what are the contours of this debate between Donald Trump and Andrew Cuomo with regard to locking down the city?
Well, Cuomo is claiming that there is no federal authority for the president to do that. Now this is Chinatown. Here, you want to walk down here or not?
Sure.
Maybe walk down here and then over to Bowery and up or something.
I feel like many presidents have done things that there's no presidential authority for, and then they just do them and they get done.
You mean like Obama, for example?
I mean, Obama, Bush, bombing Iraq, Obama droning everybody. Somebody told me that Trump has actually increased the number of drone bombings since Obama. Look at this. So here's another line at the Fresh Market. This is the new normal, Charles, waiting in line to buy stuff.
We're becoming the former Soviet Union.
Yeah.
And notice how quiet it is, except for us.
Right.
I mean, the Chinatown district is a lot bigger than right here.
And it's usually bustling. Lots of people going all around. Wow, that's a big line.
Must be good food.
But all these, I mean, you can even smell the fish still from over here. They're usually filled up.
Yep.
But no, they're not.
Exactly. And there's the Wing Fat Company. Joe Biden's going on the board of directors. He's going on the board of directors. Listen, Wing Fat.
Oh, that lady just coughed right at us.
Behind a mask, though.
No, she wasn't wearing a mask.
Nice. But as you can see,
people are getting arrested for coughing on people. Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy. Yeah, Hester Street is another. Remember Hester Street?
Yep.
Good Italian. Do you want to go this way to?
Whichever way.
To Bowery and up?
You can go whichever way you want, Charles.
Right. I think that gets you to the Bowery and up.
Yeah.
Just see. Yeah, see the fancy building there? This used to be, where we're next going to go, used to be derelict. They would refer to them as hobos. Drunks would sleep in the street, heroin addicts. And in the real estate boom that occurred after 9/11, in particular, this whole area, a lot of it got built up. In fact, I went to Xing Fu Tong Inc.
What is this?
It's like a Chinese mall.
Ah.
Chinese stores.
It really is like transporting yourself to some Asian country when you come down here.
Right. And we can't, as you were on the JAGA, think about escaping from New York. We can't.
No.
So that's why we're here.
Yes.
We're not even going to try.
I don't want to. A lot of people have been sending me emails. Oh, get out, dude. They're going to lock the city down. And first of all, this is my home. I don't want to get out. Where am I going to go to? And that's the other question. Where am I going to go to?
You could go to Chappaqua.
Well, I mean, so I'm going to leave the safety, comfort, and security, or relative safety, comfort, and security of my apartment to go somewhere that, first of all, I don't know if they're going to allow me to go, and if there's a problem, I don't know if I'm going to be allowed to come back.
That's why we stay here.
Right. I've got food at my place. The heat works. I've got clothing,
Pigeons.
water,
Pigeons.
bathroom. Why would I leave? Go somewhere where I might. I mean, even if I was just outside somewhere right now, I could get sick. It's cold.
Yeah. So this will get us, if we walk uptown, this will get us back towards your place.
I'm sad that we don't have the comments. I'd like to see what people are saying, but it's interesting for people to see all this stuff. You know, hotels have been by this. Charles, I've been watching a lot of the videos that were put out by the Event 201 simulation. Let's go look at the Manhattan Bridge. There's probably very little traffic there. Boy, this guy's looking super Blade Runner behind us. Do you see this guy?
Yeah, I do.
He's like selling synthetic owls somewhere.
Have you been over the Manhattan Bridge ever? It goes right into Williamsburg.
I'm not sure if I've been over it. Maybe in a car.
I've done it. It's a nice walk, not for today.
No. But it's kind of interesting to see for people.
This guy's still coming.
Something's going on. The thing is not. There we go. I think the temperature is perhaps affecting some of the equipment, but there's the Manhattan Bridge. Charles,
Wow.
I mean, again, to see that with no traffic
Let's
or
make
cars
a sudden
on it.
left here.
Yeah, he's just like a ninja or something.
Yeah, well, I
don't think
just didn't like the way he was shadowing us.
Yeah. So there's the Manhattan Bridge. There are a few cars going over it, and we've got the police over there, so that's good. I guess. That's an interesting kind of police van. You see that?
Yeah.
Slightly unusual.
So we can go across and up, maybe?
Sure.
Still working?
Yeah.
The lights doesn't seem to be working, but
We can just go, I think.
there we go. We'll go that way.
I mean, it's remarkable.
Huh?
It's just remarkable to see
Yeah.
this. It's when will it end? You know, they're talking about May. All the restaurants are saying that they're closed until April now. The federal court in Virginia that's handling this Steele v. Goodman, they sent an order last week. They had initially delayed everything until April, and now they've pushed it until May.
Really? Wow. I think that's, at this stage when we really don't know much yet about, where the virus has migrated to, we don't know really much about the true impact of it. And in an abundance of caution, the people who are going to make these decisions are going to say, listen, let's give it some extra time to burn out.
Right. Well, I mean, certainly until the government says, okay, things are back on. Businesses aren't going to open. Courts aren't going to open.
Flaming kitchen, sup crab.
Yeah.
Does not look very good.
Actually, in my top 10 lists of things to at least look on the bright side about, the pause on these fake lawsuits against me was one of them. For the past almost 3 years, I've been having this cloud hanging over me of having to address these things, and I've been able to sort of focus on work without having to worry, at least until April or May.
That's great.
Yeah, it's better than bad. Now, the other thing I've noticed is that all these little link stations have got COVID-19 messages on them for everybody. Stay informed. If you have mild symptoms, stay home and isolate. Only go to the emergency room if you're severely ill or involved in a simulation for the New York Times. I should say that Dr. Smith vehemently denies that this is a simulation. Oh yeah, this is what it's going to say. So I was watching the videos from this Event 201, which was a pandemic simulation put on by the Johns Hopkins University and funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in October of 2019. And at the conclusion of it, one of the primary conclusions was that they needed more realistic simulations to be prepared for a viral pandemic.
Right.
So somebody sent to me, a friend of mine here in the city, sent me a video yesterday where Mike Pompeo makes an apparent slip of the tongue, saying that we are in a live exercise. And Dr. Bricks kind of bristles when he says that. And Trump quite clearly says, you should have told us. So what the hell does that mean, Charles?
That's really weird.
It is really weird.
Yeah.
I mean, is this a simulation, a resilience test? David Hawkins has told us in many episodes of Discovery CSI that the company Serco offers, and you can see it on their webpage, one of the services they offer is resilience testing that involving government networks, television networks.
You could probably make a run for it.
Yeah. It basically involves the simulation of a crisis to test the police readiness, boy, that guy looked real sketchy.
What?
That guy looked super sketchy.
Right.
They're testing everything, the news, the police, the government. So, you know, the other thing is there's this patent from a guy named Jerome Lemelson that's intended to turn an exercise into a live fire incident, and that it can do it on the fly. So, you know, part of the confusion comes in, we hear about things like 9/11 and Sandy Hook, and there always seem to be these, you know, tests and drills and all kinds of things going on simultaneous that are real coincidental. I think even when we had the shooting in Christchurch, New Zealand, there was some sort of training going on just prior to the Las Vegas shooting. There was some kind of training incident going on. So, I don't know, they seem to mix these training incidents with live events. And it's difficult to understand what that's all about.
Yes. NYPD traffic.
They're everywhere, but the regular cops aren't so much. What is Memo 618? Do you know anything about that?
I don't.
Neither do I.
So you can see this area is it's not exactly the first place I'd want to live, but believe it or not, it's a lot better than it used to be.
It's super windy, and we just got hit with some radio interference.
Probably we should jump across the street. Give us a second because we're in a high density, or normally high density area.
Yeah, it's not too bad right now.
Let's see, whichever way it goes first, probably that way I'll go first.
Yeah.
Let's give us a second, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go.
Whoop. Uh-oh. I think this is dead.
Huh?
We might be getting close to the end of the show from a battery standpoint, because I think the stabilizer just lost battery. I got an extra battery for here. Heck, grab that for 1 second.
Sure. We're just taking a quick rest break.
Not really.
Jason's
We're just gonna get
work
a
his
battery
magic.
on that. So what else do we know about Tedros and?
Yeah, so when we go into the history of Ethiopia, it seems that the Clintons have this uncanny ability to get involved in countries where there is wrenching ethnic strife. And Tedros comes from the Tigray, Tigra region or state within Ethiopia. And over really centuries there have been long-standing conflicts, but that culminated in the past into the perceived need for strong central rulers. And Ethiopia had, for a while, it had an emperor, and then it had a military coup, a brutal dictator, Mengistu. And so when you look into the history of Ethiopia, which most people frankly don't study,
Right.
You will find that there's a lot of questionable behavior. We don't have light yet, but a lot of questionable behavior during Tedros' tenure, first as health minister, simultaneously as chair of the Global Fund, and then as foreign minister before he became head of the World Health Organization. In addition, one of the distinguishing features of Ethiopia is it has a lot of land that could be used as farmland. People refer to Ethiopia as the breadbasket of Africa.
So why'd they have that huge famine in the 80s and 90s?
Because of the incompetence of the ethnic strife. But the Chinese have long been interested in Ethiopia. And the theory is that one of the reasons that Tedros was rewarded with the World Health Organization chair is that he would do China's bidding. And you see that in the way he's talking about how China handled the Wuhan crisis.
Yes.
You know, we haven't really gotten the straight scoop as to when China first learned of the prevalence of that virus.
So here's Nudie Jeans Repair Shop. People are going to recall the other day I walked by that weird tattoo place that had mannequins with furries, do they call that? The animal heads on people? Like, what is that about?
You're asking the wrong guy.
Whoa! Whoops, almost lost the yell hat.
I know, don't want to do that.
It's a crappy day, Charles.
I know.
For more reasons than just the weather.
It's a blustery day, said Winnie the Pooh. But
Yeah.
we're not far away now from Washington Square Park again, believe it or not.
Right. Oh my God. Did you see that guy?
I did. I didn't want to stare.
Hey, he looks like he just got the crap beat out of him.
Which is maybe a reason to avoid that group of people over there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We'll cross the street.
Maybe we should cross the street.
Yeah.
There's another group of them over there.
Where? Oh yeah. I see that. Yeah, they're kind of hiding under this construction thing.
I'm not a fan of that. We can go in the median,
Yeah.
but I definitely think we want to.
No, we're good over here, I think. I mean, this is another street that would normally be just one car after the next.
Should we walk on the median?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Bowery Mission is, I think, a homeless thing.
Yeah. And look, it's rough. I mean, it's rough if you're healthy, be on the
Yeah.
street, but as we are now. But it's
Right.
even rougher if you're not healthy,
Don't have proper clothes. There's the Bowery Mission right there.
which is quite old.
Yep.
I think Bowery means garden.
I don't know.
I mean, it was a garden way back when.
Huh. I mean, at some point, I guess all of this was a garden.
Now, we could probably go in there
Sure.
after the light changes.
Yeah.
That looks.
I wonder where these people are going.
Rhode Island.
Right. Now there's a police car with the sirens on. A couple pairs of shoes that could get looted.
It's called Fight. I remember one of the stupid projects that was proposed to me a long time ago was to get into the light bulb business.
Uh-huh.
And there was a private company based in California that made light bulbs with a branded name.
Yeah.
And it was the Fight Bulb, F-I-T-E or F-E-I-T or something like that. And, you know, this presentation was made to me as to why we should do all this. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You're competing against Sylvania,
Yeah.
GE, and you want to do some little $30 million company?
Was there something interesting about the light bulb?
No, that's an incident there.
Yeah, I see it.
We should just go north, I think, young man.
Incident right there.
Yeah.
Wait, let's just see for a quick second.
Multiple cruisers.
Yep. Let's see if we can see what's going on. So the police are around, but exactly what's
And
happening
there's two
is...
really strange people right behind you.
Okay,
So
let's
we're
go.
gonna make a right.
Yep.
Sorry, I'll go on this side here. Yeah, I'm glad we did that. You
Yeah.
had to reprise. We did that at the end, right? Last week we did that right off the bat.
Right.
Go to Penn Station.
Yeah. I mean, that guy was a troublemaker.
Well, there were two more of them.
There's a whole lot of them.
And believe it or not, this area here, some of these buildings are still run down, but they're nestled in between them are a few super upscale apartments. I don't know if that one, modern one there, is an example.
Oh, yeah.
Here's your nice meat store, old-fashioned meat store.
Closed.
Albanese.
Boy, it's really something to see all these places closed.
And you can't get this revenue back.
No. You know, the other thing is, even if they say, okay, restaurants can open, people are still going to be paranoid and not wanting to go.
Right. Or what about traveling? I mean, you're going to get on a plane and spend 6 hours flying to California?
I would, but I don't think a lot of other people will. There's a lot of talk about various airlines cutting their service, going out of business, closing indefinitely.
We were on the southern tour today, but I was halfway thinking it would have been fun to go up to Grand Central Station and try to buy a ticket to Tokyo.
Well, how can you get a ticket to Tokyo at Grand Central Station?
On AOC's train.
AOC's train, right. Have they built that yet?
Ixnay. Now what is this? This is East Houston Street.
Yeah.
So this is reasonably upscale.
It's
how are we doing on battery?
Battery on this one is at 50%. There's obviously
another
something wrong
incident
with the
over
battery
there.
on the other.
You want to walk up to that, or is that risky?
What are you looking at?
2 police cruisers.
I don't know.
Keep going this way and then up. Maybe
I
we
think
go.
the stabilizer's battery is dead, and this thing keeps unplugging. I have an
Why
auxiliary.
don't you stand in the sidewalk? I think I haven't been around this area, this particular part of New York, in a long time.
No? Yeah, well, we're out of battery here on the stabilizer, so it might be time to end today's episode, Charles.
All right. Well, thanks for joining. We'll be back next Sunday.
Yep. Thanks for watching, everybody. Oh yeah. See, I don't have any of the graphics on this phone, so I haven't been telling people about how they can sponsor the show with patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth or subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. But thanks to everybody who's been doing that. Couldn't carry on with the show without you. Have a great evening, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow.